On this episode of On Tap, a team of electrical engineers set out to make the perfect beer.
We also take a look at the rise in charity beer festivals.
And we will show you just how easy it is to make your own beer.
Plus, Community Keg House, a new craft beer experience in a historic building.
Welcome to another episode of On Tap. I'm Ben Hale, joined by Danica Peterson. Today we're at Community Keg House in Northeast Minneapolis and excited to drink and eat. Man, this is some delicious looking food in front of us.
It looks pretty amazing.
Yeah, what are you drinking today, Danica?
I got the IPA from 56 Brewing. How about you?
I have a session IPA from Enki Brewing. Yummy is what I'm going to describe it as.
And we'll get into more of what this place is about later in the show. But first, we're going to talk about Tin Whiskers Brewing.
Yeah, Tin Whiskers Brewing in St. Paul. We headed over there not too long ago. And at Tin Whiskers, they have a mission to make almost the perfect beer. There's so much science that go into beer, and these are people that are all about the engineering of beer. So let's take a look at Tin Whiskers. I'm in downtown St. Paul, just 8 blocks from the Xcel Energy Center, 6 blocks from CHS Field where the St. Paul Saints play, and I'm here at Tin Whiskers. Let's go inside and get a cold beverage.
Tin Whiskers has got kind of a fun story to it. We're located in downtown St. Paul on 9th and Robert Streets in what's called the Rosmore building. We share this building with Black Sheep Pizza, Keys Cafe, and Sawadee. We have a lot of communal table seating, 9 beers on tap, including a cask, and then a bunch of games people can play. At the core of what Tin Whiskers is, from a brand perspective, you have the engineer on the top level, but the underlying theme is like we're nerds, right? And we have this belief that everyone's nerdy about something, whether it's sports or beer or games, Legos, you name it. We're all electrical engineers. We all met while going to University of Minnesota getting electrical engineering degrees. And after graduation, we ended up working at the same company in downtown Minneapolis. And then 4 years went by while me and one of the partners was homebrewing together, where we toured Sterling Flat Earth, and I got really inspired to want to open my own brewery. And so I emailed around, and Jake and George, the other 2 guys, agreed to come on. And so we came about trying to decide what to name our company and what would be the brand image once we were kind of moving forward on that business plan. And we wanted something that really tied the 3 of us strongly together and presented a unique and authentic experience of brand identity. And the only thing we share that commonly together, other than our affinity for craft beer, obviously, was our day jobs, professions. So we did many happy hours with our engineering coworkers, literally reading through engineering glossaries. And after about a couple beers, this becomes a really pointless exercise of futility. But out of it, we ended up developing 3 names. We had Tin Whiskers, we had Logic Ale, we had Ohms Brewing. Tin Whiskers by far took the cake. And so you might ask, what is a tin whisker? Well, it's actually a funny thing to name a brewery after, because what a tin whisker is, it's more of a phenomena that occurs with pure tin. And the really coolest thing about picking the name Tin Whiskers was that shortly before we opened, if you were to Google Tin Whiskers, the first search return would be the NASA's research website on it. And the engineer that runs that website somehow must monitor whether or not he's the first search return, because about a few weeks around when we opened, we surpassed his website as the #1 search return, and he started emailing us, giving us this hard time. And so we got this banter going back and forth, really kind of developing a good rapport. And then as serendipitous as life can be, this engineer comes into town for a Tin Whisker work conference of all things. And so he comes by the brewery and he brings us one of our coolest mementos here. We love to show people. You can always ask for it if you come to the tap room. The beer tenders will be happy to show you, but he brought us this card rail from the Space Shuttle Endeavour. And back in the late 90s, they'd replace every single card rail throughout the shuttle fleet at a cost of $4 million because they tin coated these card rails, and these card rails grew tin whiskers. And so if you come look at it, probably better seen in person, but if you move it around, you'll see what looks like metallic dust or hair. That's actual tin whisker growth there. And light reflection is the only way you can see it with your naked eye, because they're just that kind of small of a finite thing. So
I know you mentioned that your names now of all your beers come from the electrical engineering world. Kind of tell me more about how that has just really infused your brand identity is like so succinct around that idea. Just talk about how it's infused everything and tell us some of those names.
It's to the core of who I am. I've been an engineer for 10 years, and so It's not only infuses into our names, like Wheatstone Bridge, Flip Switch IPA, Short Circuit Stout, and then we have some more esoteric kind of names like Barrel Shifter Porter. I mean, that's like with memory shifting, you do in memory stuff. We have like the Parody Pilsner. It's coming out in our spring seasonal here. We have a lot of fun picking those kind of names, but then trying to find a way to distill what sometimes can be a kind of complex engineering thing down to a couple sentences that people can understand and grasp and really relate to. Quality is a huge thing that we take care of. Safety. I mean, we have a huge quality program here that most small breweries of our size don't. We have weekly in-house staff off-flavor training. We do every week. We sample every single beer in every stage of fermentation, make sure everything is tracking along as it should. We send everything off to a lab at the end to make sure our process control is tight and in alignment with ABV, SRM, all that kind of stuff. And then we even take it forward into a product development, how we develop products. We just don't spitball a recipe and make a big batch and just hope it sells and turns out. It's not how we operate. We kept our pilot system that was in my basement for 4 years while we were starting up. We brought it here. We have a 1-barrel system. We upgraded it. And what we do is we use it to pilot beers. If you come to the tap room, it'll be under the name Fourier Series, which is another electrical engineering term. But and what we've kind of done is refined our beer development process that includes you, the drinking public, in how that product gets developed.
How has Tin Whiskers and being in this business changed your life?
When you start a business, it cannot but change your life. It's very much like having a kid. I would know I did both at the same time. So my son was born 5 days after the grand opening here. I would not recommend it. But it's just like a kid in many ways. It takes a lot of time and nurturing and investment on your part to guide it and grow it and build it and monitor it and ensure it's developing. So it really becomes a huge part of who you are as a person. It's an outward extension of what you do and who you are and what you've achieved. And to build this, it took us 4 years to build this thing. It took me 6 months for it to finally, the surrealness of it to wear off, because I never thought it would happen. I almost quit 3 times in the process. But
what are some of your hopes and dreams for the future for Tin Whiskers? What do you hope your business looks like 5 years down the road?
We started with a capacity to do about 1,500 barrels a year, and we did that last year. And this year we'll do close to 3,000, and that's at the limit of what we can do here. So we're already looking at how we continue to grow on another facility and see how that goes. So this year, if we produce 3,000 barrels, we'll be exceeding the production I ever thought we'd do in year 5 of opening. So we're about 2 times faster than I ever thought. And so my aspirations are to grow it into about a 20,000 barrels a year brewery. And that includes building a second facility somewhere in the city of St. Paul or Roseville.
What do you hope people experience when they come in here?
You come here, we want you to feel relaxed at home. We're not pretentious. We're just here. People that just love craft beer and love to share it with you. And so, we kind of just consider this an extension of your living room.
Thanks to Jeff and the team at Tin Whiskers, and I know next time I'm downtown in St. Paul, maybe for a Saints game this summer, I'm going to stop over to Tin Whiskers before heading over to the ballpark.
Tasty beer there.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we're going to take a break and enjoy our beers, and when we come back, we're going to venture into the world of a beginning brewer and show you just how easy it is to brew your own beer.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Looks like it's done.
Don't let salmonella get funky with your chicken. On average, 1 in 6 Americans will get a foodborne illness this year. You can't see these microbes, but they might be there. So learn the right temperature to cook each type of meat. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov.
Welcome back to On Tap. I'm
sure many of you are avid home brewers, but for those of you who aren't, we're going to take a few minutes today and show you the process so you'd be less intimidated if you want to try it yourself.
And we're going to use a kit because that's just the easiest way to go. Right inside it's got all your hops, your grains, your yeast, your additives, all in one nice box ready to go.
And today we're going to be brewing the Angry Beast IPA. It's a kit that we picked up from Brew and Grow. It's meant to be a clone of Surly Furious. But before we dive in on the brewing, we got to start with the most important step of brew day, and that's sanitization. And while all of our gear is sanitizing, we do have to activate our yeast packet. I like the liquid yeast. It just works a lot better than the dry yeast, and it's worth a couple extra bucks. So to activate this yeast, there's actually a small packet of enzymes that are inside this larger packet. So we need to break that. So how you do it is you kind of tilt your yeast packet sideways. So it's right down here, and then you just smack it nice and hard. So the first step, according to our directions, is to get 3 gallons of water up to 155 degrees.
Now we're going to drop in our sanitized floating thermometer and wait.
So our next step is to get our crushed grains into this muslin bag. Any shop you buy your beer kit at should crush the grains for you. If they don't do it, just ask and they'll do it for you. So as you're pouring into the bag, it's really helpful to have a friend because it can be a little tricky.
And now that we are at 155 degrees, we've got our grains in our bag here. We're going to put it in, and it's really just like steeping tea. We're going to let it sit for about 30 minutes, and during that time, we're going to make sure that we keep the temperature right at about 155 degrees. Well, it's been 30 minutes, so we're ready to take out our grain bag and throw it away.
And the next step, according to our directions, is to add our liquid malt extract. We have 2 different kinds here, an amber and an extra light. And we just pour them in and stir, stir, stir. So here comes 9.3 pounds of liquid malt extract.
So now that the liquid malt extract is in, we're ready to add our first set of hops. Some Amarillo hops are going in, and ooh, they smell delicious. And then the next thing is we just got to get this kettle boiling. Well, now we are boiling, so it's time to dump in our bittering hops, which is 2 ounces of Warrior hops. And we're going to dump those in and stir those in here. And then we're going to boil this for 40 minutes, and we're going to stir every 5. We've been boiling for 40 minutes. And now it's time to add our next stage of hops. These are our flavoring hops, 2 ounces of Amarillo. So those are going to go in, and they go in for about 10 minutes.
So our 1 hour of brew time is up. So now our goal is to get this boiling liquid to room temperature as quickly as possible. And there's a few options. Some people like to throw this right in a sink in the kettle and just fill your sink with ice water and set it in there. The problem with that is that you have to pull it out and change the ice water a couple times because the water will get hot. Other people like to throw this in the bathtub with the same scenario. Just fill the bathtub with ice water and set it in there. But today we're going to be using a ward chiller, which is a little more advanced, but I like it because it keeps things simple. So that's the ward chiller. So our water is cooled down to 70 to 80 degrees in that range. And now we're going to pour it right into our carboy. And from there, after that, we're going to add our yeast.
So we put this plug in here. So we're done for today. We've done all the steps that we need to do. The beer still needs about another 30 days before it's ready to drink. But on the next episode of On Tap, we will drink this beer, and we'll also compare it to Surly Furious, which it's cloned from, and we'll compare the two and see who made a better beer, us or, you know, those guys over at Surly. All right, we'll be right back with some more On Tap.
Up, college is hard. Down, those books are heavy.
My sport is football, but my passion is education. So every year I take promising high schoolers on a college tour to show them that higher education means a brighter future. My name is Nnamdi Asamoah. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
You can be a reader, tutor, or mentor too. Take the pledge at liveunited.org/volunteer.
Do you wear this?
Severe weather can destroy a home in seconds. There's no time to think, only time to act. Have a kit so you're ready for any emergency. Develop a plan for what you and your family will do before disaster strikes. And stay informed during severe weather any way you can. It can be the difference between losing your possessions and losing your life. Just ask the owners of this house.
Visit weather.com/ready and let the Weather Channel help you prepare your family for emergencies.
Welcome back to On Tap. We're still here at Community Keg House enjoying the delicious food and beer. And Beer Fest. I like a good beer fest.
Who doesn't?
You got Winterfest, you got ABR, you got All Pints North, you've got Beer Dabblers. The list goes on and on. Rare Beer Fest. I know
they're endless.
They're endless. But another thing that's becoming quite popular is the Charity Beer Festival.
Hops Are Hung is a craft beer fundraiser, celebrates the local brewing community, and it's a fundraiser for the food shelf. It was just something that I thought would be just a good fundraiser. The craft beers were getting, starting to get real popular, and I thought, let's try to do this. Let's see if we can get something going. We've got 19 breweries this year.
We are pouring a Wind Vane and Surrett IPA, and Migration is a blonde ale. Today we have the DeLovely Porter and the Maibach.
This is our oatmeal stout, and I think it's probably the most popular one so far this evening.
Today we're pouring our dark chocolate coconut stout, infused with black walnuts and more coconut. So we call it Walnut Joy.
So we've got a Pilsner, a Schwarzbier, a West Coast style lager, an IPA, and then the Hoppy Red Lager is our seasonal.
We have our Old 8 Porter, 6-knot English style IPA, Little Barley Session Ale, and our signature Wild Brunette, a Wild Rice Brown Ale.
We're pouring the Freewheeler, which is a dry cider, and our Coffee Car, which is a coffee stout.
Pouring our Mexican Honey Imperial Lager, our Let It Ride IPA, and then we're also pouring some of our Derailed Series Bock.
We have 2 beers tonight. We're pouring our IPA, it's called the First Light, and an American Red Ale, our House Red.
That's a fun thing. I mean, it's hard not to be happy when you got all this beer around,
Cheers! Cheers! To come to an event like this, obviously craft beer is a great way to get people out, and it's great to see that it's going to a great cause. So,
Hops for Hunger is one of the best events that's put on in the city.
Feeding hungry people is kind of a serious thing. So it's nice to have some fun when you do it.
And today we've been here at Community Keg House having a great time, and it's a really unique place because it's not really a restaurant, and it's not really a bar, and it's not really a tap room, but it's kind of all of those things.
This is a Community Keg House located in northeast Minneapolis. This is actually in this former building until 1975 were grain belt kegs. So it's the Keg House. So Community Keg House at its core is trying to be like a wine bar for our local Minnesota craft beer scene. And by that, I do not mean that it's meant to be pretentious and overdone, but rather that at wine bars, you get to get in close and experience and learn about wine, right? So we've attempted to reproduce that kind of idea here, but with beer. So you get to get closer to beer effectively. You get to come in, you get to talk directly with our tap tenders, who are all either cicerones or certified beer servers, and they will talk to you about our Minnesota craft beer scene. They will talk to you about beer style, where these breweries are. That's at the core of the idea, is information. So there's really nothing that hard about pouring a beer. Occasionally people mess it up, but it has been really fetishized to the point where people are like, whoa. Some people who hear about our concept are like, oh, I want a bartender to pour me the beer, or like they think that they're back there lost in an array of beer. Of course, it's not the case when you come in here. Precisely the opposite is where we have that table stationed with very informed people, and you can engage them as much as you want to engage them. So every Wednesday now we're doing Meet the Brewer. And the idea is literally that brewer is back at the table next to their respective tap, and whoever comes in can talk to them about beer, can get a sample of the beer.
I'm here to kind of, meet and greet, the customers.
So, I mean, that's about as close as you're going to get to a brewer.
And the one that we actually have here is First Light. It's our American IPA, which is kind of cool because it's using some different varieties of hops that not a lot of people are using right now.
You're going to sample it. They'll give you a sample of it right next to their tap, and you can literally say, what, because I don't always know this stuff, what hops go in this? How does the whole boiling process work? What was your motivation for this beer, How do you mean it to be? Like, why is it this malty? Whatever, I don't know, whatever you want to ask them, but it's usually all speculative. But, there you get to talk to the person who's actually crafted it.
That's probably the best part about it. Typically when people want to come and talk to me, they're into it. They're into the beer, they're either home brewers or they're just really big craft beer fans. It's really great. You get to kind of geek out and just really do a bunch of that really great beer geek stuff with people and come and talk to them. So.
You want to get geeky about beer, you can. You want to just say, recommend a beer for me, you can. It's really, I feel like more than any other place, I hope, you can get very much connected to what you're drinking, from whom, and the people you're talking with.
Community Keg House is really cool because, for one, it's a super unique concept. The fact that there's a line of taps that you can come and basically pour your own beer with a tap tender there that really can educate you about different beers, which is great. I mean, because sometimes you go into restaurants and you say, oh, well, I see the list and there's this beer and I haven't had this beer before. The menu really doesn't tell me much about it. Like, this is a little different, which is really cool. And it's also great because they're really focused on local beer, and we're of course as a local brewery, that's good for us.
We're not trying to have beer like bar food, basically. It's not super expensive here, but we're trying to do something that is more savory, plated. Main chef John Lands was a former chef at Travail, so. What he's got really into is interesting plating of food. We have not the whole menu, but we're trying to do a lot of locally sourced food items. We've worked with a lot of local people. Red Table Meats here, the Lone Grazer, Aki's, Piece of Pie, they make our pies. So that is the hope, is again to support local businesses with our food. This is kind of the key thing that we've spent a long time on. It's our sample plate. It's all locally sourced. All of those meats are from Red Table Meats right here in Northeast in the food building. A couple of different cheeses that we have locally sourced. That is a fantastic thing to share. And we have a number of other things in the menu as well. I mean, the other thing, of course, is that we are really trying to be entrenched in the art scene here in Northeast, and we very much support all of these local artists on our walls. The artwork is in rotation. There's a certain divide between the arts community and the craft beer community, and I've talked to some other brewers, we think there's a natural kind of cross-pollination that can work really well. It does give it like a sense of community because these are real people. They built real things, and we want to celebrate that. The whole place is meant to be a communal experience. So you sit by people you don't know, you do whatever you want here, you play games. So I mean it to be very sort of low pressure, and it's about the experience of just eating and drinking and talking to your friends.
Well, that wraps up this episode of On Tap, and we'd like to thank everyone at Hops for Hunger and Seika, Tin Whiskers, and Community Keg House for showing us around.
Yes, it's been a great time. And remember, as always, drink good beer and drink it responsibly.
This episode of On Tap is brought to you in part by Tin Whiskers Brewing Company in St. Paul, the perfect place for beer nerds and non-nerds alike, and Community Keg House, a craft beer bar and eatery in Northeast Minneapolis, showcasing Minnesota beer, food, and art.